here on the She Can Engineer stand. I'm with two engineers who clearly can. Natalia, first of all, just tell me a little bit about what your day job is away from the charity.
Sure. So my role is to help manage the Vehicle Emissions Research Centre that's based at Ricardo down in Shoreham. I love my job. I love working on different cars. My day-to-day responsibilities mix between technical and making sure that all of our testing is up to regulations, but also commercial as well. And I do a lot of customer-focused meetings, making sure that they understand the testing that we're doing, understanding what the client requires.
And Maira, what about you?
So day-to-day work is running the computational fluid dynamics team at Red Engineering. So specializing typically in the data center industry. So that is looking at how airflow moves around your data centers, how to keep them cool, how not to overcool them and waste energy. So working with a lot of big clients, projects all around the world, also looking at how these facilities can impact the environment and vice versa. You can design the same data center and put it in two different geographies and it's going to behave in very different ways. So that is the kind of the simulation angle to analyzing data center airflow.
But here we are. You have completely different hats on today because you're here at She Can Engineer, which is a charity. Tell me a little bit about the charity.
So we've been going for quite a few years. We started up in 2016. I say we, I wasn't actually part of it back then. I joined as a volunteer after attending my first She Can Engineer event in 2018. It started in response to what was at the time National Women in Engineering Day. And it came about because the different professional engineering institutions wanted to do something to commemorate that day. But it didn't have the same traction back then as it would now. So they would essentially have been competing against each other for an audience and working with very limited volunteering resource. So someone had the bright idea to bring together volunteers from each of the institutions and put on one fantastic event in London to celebrate women in engineering. And that became annual. We also introduced the STEM education angle. And this has a heavy engineering focus. So if you look at a lot of the other STEM initiatives out there, it's quite well balanced around sciences, technology, mathematics. And then it brings in engineering. We are engineering focused. So that was kind of the seed of what we do. And we kept at it year on year. We got through the pandemic doing a lot of virtual activities, hosted competitions for kids. That was quite exciting. But the fact that we survived the pandemic was a little bit of luck as well. We didn't have any continuity in place. That's why it was super important for us to register as a charity. So we did that last year, and it's been a lot of work. Our lawyer told us the first year will be hell, and the second year will be as bad, but by year 10 you'll be laughing. So it's been year one.
Come on.
And we are at our, we've spoken at conferences before, but this is our first time exhibiting at a conference. So this has been a super exciting day.
We've got here sitting here on the table with us, I've got a copy of The Engineer, and the cover is the June issue, and I know that you're celebrating some Women in Engineering events happening this month as well. Mm-hmm. Amazing women, dynamic women. Some of them, I think, really came to the fore probably after, during the First World War, Second World War, when there weren't men around to do the job, and women had to step in. And they stepped in really well. I mean, I think today we're actually across the country commemorating, celebrating the D-Day landings. But behind the scenes, many, many women were involved in this. So why, when their role was so crucial in the 1940s, are we still, do you exist as a charity? Why are we still, have we progressed?
Oh, absolutely we've progressed. That's the short answer. You hit on something really lovely. Why do we exist? our vision can probably be summarized as a day that our initiative is no longer required. Make us obsolete, because that means we've got gender parity in engineering. That would make us very happy. It's happened because there are centuries of stereotypes to overcome. We shine a lot of light on other initiatives out there, and there is so much important work that's happening for women in business, women in tech.
Was it hard for you guys? And actually, what about you? Was it a difficult? Because you're working in emissions, an important role. But what was it hard for you to take those steps?
I think I was enjoying engineering so much that I just didn't look at it until I stepped foot in industry. And at that point, the penny dropped and I was like, oh my goodness, yes, I'm the only one here. And it was from that experience, especially over that first month, navigating the thoughts and the feelings that came with that, and trying to build my confidence with it. And I think the difference between higher education and in the industry is that, okay, I might be the only woman in my class at the time, but as soon as you step outside of the class, you see the rest of the women on campus. And that's a pretty 50-50 split. The moment you start working on an engineering site, it is genuinely just you, maybe another woman. And so that's, I think, where most of the difficulty came from. But once you can work through that and know that there is a space for you here, you might not always have to see it to be it, but it becomes a really rewarding career.
So where, in a sense, does your work start? Do you start by approaching schools? Do you go to universities? Where does that sort of that contact?
It's almost like we planted it, but we didn't. So we are all about that full pipeline. So we start with the typically secondary school, but we have worked with primary schools as well. That engineering education, raising awareness, showing them the variety of engineering careers that are out there. So we can run these amazing STEM outreach days, which just are like a condensed, intense exposure to engineering. They'll learn some technical skills, but also those softer skills that are super important, like how to work as a team, how to budget, how to negotiate, and how to compromise. That is something that I think we learn in our real world jobs far more than any degree can teach us. So we share that with the students and get them thinking about it as a viable career. Then we have the exposure to the institutions. So we introduce them to the IMechE, IChemE, ICE. There's a whole list. You're probably going to have to edit that out because otherwise someone's going to get a little bit annoyed that we mentioned.
Well, but it's that clarity that there are places out there, there are organisations out there. I think it's really
so we start early, but then we also have a lot of focus on working engineers. So we're working to raise awareness around not just engineering to the public, so students, teachers, and their parents, because that is really important, but also raising awareness around diversity and inclusion. And that is most applicable to the institutions and engineering corporations. And that will apply at every level. So we go in and run workshops for corporations and institutions, whether that is for working engineers, senior leadership, HR. It's all very adaptable to what the company wants. We run these celebratory events. So we've got one coming up. May I do a shameless plug?
Go for it.
Amazing. So on the 21st of June, it's a Friday, in the evening, we'll be at BAFTA 195 Piccadilly in London for an evening of celebration. We'll have inspiring speakers, a lovely reception, a chance to meet the sponsors. It tends to be a quality event. So that's in celebration of International Women in Engineering Day.
I'll just jump in there.
Yeah.
I have to say that the celebrations are my favourite thing. I went into the InWed 2023 celebration, and that just had the right people, the right energy. It was such an uplifting and inspiring event that after that, it was an absolute pleasure to join the team as a volunteer. I'm so glad that I went.
Because that's the thing, I think it's really important to get across, you know, that you guys, which we started off when I asked you both what you do, your day-to-day jobs, because you all have day-to-day jobs.
Yeah.
Such is your passion that you all volunteer.
Oh, we would be nothing without volunteers.
Yeah.
So we're still very small. I think about 15 committed volunteers, 5 trustees, and we have always wanted to maintain that volunteer-led angle. So even after becoming a charity, we wanted to keep the committee aspect so that non-trustees could lead the organisation of these events. We are incredibly events focused. It's one of the things that makes us quite special. But we are trying to kind of expand that a little bit, especially with regards to the universities. So we've done such a good job of the early STEM and the retention and valuing women in the workforce. We were missing that point where students can leave university and get naturally tempted by amazing opportunities in other sectors. I say that meaning financial opportunities.
Yeah.
That they don't necessarily see engineering as a viable career. So that we've always been missing. So this year we're doing a lot more to work with universities and actually put on events for them rather than with them, which is what we've done in the past. And also things like this.
I was going to ask you about actually being here at Subcon, because it's quite, you know, in that these are all the future employers for you know, engineers or for people, you know, going into the engineering sector. So how important is it for you to be here and kind of get your presence now?
I think yes. I think I couldn't expect how well today would have gone if you had asked me yesterday. It's been, this morning has started off with so many great conversations with people that I would have never expected to have a conversation with, and that's why it's so important that we're here and have a presence in a space that typically we may not have had before. So just by having conversations with people and providing that safe space to say, hey, I'm an engineer as a man, I've got daughters and I don't know how they're going to navigate the engineering space. Can you give me some advice, or what should I do? And being able to provide that advice this morning has just been so rewarding.
And I thought it was interesting listening to some of the panels. Most of the panels I've seen, there seem to be women on the doing most of the space. So it's like, you know, come on, girls.
The inclusion here has been phenomenal. Natalia was hitting on something really important. Gender inclusion is at the core of our charity. What I mean by that is we want to bring more men to the table. We want that audience at the STEM events to have boys in it. This is not closed off to them. It's about raising awareness of engineering.
And balance. It's about balance, isn't it?
Balance and normalizing what we do to everyone. It's not just about being role models to young girls. This is about meaning that one day maybe we don't have to talk about the need for role models to young girls.
Because it's also about going into, you know, if you go to a job, you're going for a job interview, and it's not a man can do this job or a woman can do this, it's a person can do this job.
Absolutely.
It's whether you are that right person.
So we do a lot around diversity in general. And I know it's in our name that, and in our objectives to be ultimately about gender, but most of the content we discuss at our workshops is around all sorts of other aspects of diversity of thought, diversity of character, how to successfully interact with people who don't come from a similar background, how to acknowledge your unconscious biases, which to me, when it was first presented, I came away feeling really down, really negative. Like they were implying I was biased against a group of people. And what I've learned over the years is actually unconscious bias is quite the opposite. It's about who you are biased towards and how you're going to favor certain characters, people who remind you of yourself. So it's about breaking that down and realizing that actually when you've got a diverse team of people, no matter what you're trying to do, whether that is run a team, run a project, or run a charity, you're going to be so much more productive. And sometimes it will be challenging. It's really easy to work in a team where everyone thinks the same.
Mhm.
You don't argue about anything. But the most productive stuff comes out of a constructive argument. So, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think, girls would probably, we've spoken about so much, we could probably sit here, but somebody should bring us a glass of wine. So you could probably sit here and talk all evening.
We were asked, is this going to last more than 20 minutes? And we said,
And I think what is fascinating is the fact, you're here, this is what you're doing, and let's hope going forward you don't have to exist for much longer.
Thanks so much, Georgie.
Thank you.